Think Realty Nation, it's Abhi Golhar. Welcome to the Think Realty podcast. Excited to be here today. We have a lot of exciting topics that we'll be covering today. The first of which is a nice little market update about institutional investor sales that are kind of sliding downward a little bit nationwide. We also have an expert guest. His name is Aaron Norris from the Norris Group. We'll be talking about iBuyer and how he is changing his strategy investing in real estate. After that, we'll discuss the features that apartment renters want the most. And last but not least, adult dorms. Have you heard of these things? I haven't. That's what's coming up on the Think Realty podcast today. Today's podcast is brought to you by Renters Warehouse, one of the largest, fastest growing, and highest reviewed property management companies in America. You want to check them out? Go to renterswarehouse.com. All right, market update. Institutional investor sales share down nationwide, up in 29% of local markets. The share of U.S. single-family home and condo sales sold to institutional investors was 1.8% in the first quarter of this year, which is down 3.7% in the previous quarter and down from 2.2% a year ago. What does that mean? Well, maybe they know something we don't. And maybe there's a reason for this. Maybe they're just not buying as much. But I don't agree with that necessarily. It also depends on where, right? If you're looking at Atlanta or your primary markets, you're not going to have a lot of institutional investors buying in these areas as heavily as they were a couple of years ago. So maybe they're looking at secondary markets and tertiary markets. And hint, hint, maybe somewhere you should take a look at going as well. Among 49 metropolitan statistical areas with a population of at least 200,000 and at least 40 institutional investor sales in Q1 of 2019, those with the highest share of institutional investor sales in the first quarter were the following cities: Columbia, South Carolina, okay, coming in at 7.9%. Atlanta, Georgia, surprisingly, at 7.4%. There's still some activity here, I guess. I thought they had all moved away. Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm still seeing a lot of activity there in Charlotte. Memphis, Tennessee, which makes sense. Memphis is a great rental market. And Las Vegas, Nevada at 5%. So you're looking at some cities to take a gander with your single-family rentals and possible investments. Look at these. Charlotte, you want to take a look at Charlotte. And Memphis, you got Corvest in Memphis as well. Great guys. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and get to the show today. My guest, Aaron Norris, who's with the Norris Group, is on now. And Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, you got it. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. I mean, obviously, we know each other, but for those of our viewers and those of our listeners that don't know who Aaron Norris is and the Norris Group, give us a little background.
Sure. I'm Vice President of the Norris Group, part of a family business. For over the last 20 years. We've provided private money for real estate investors doing fix and flip, buy and hold, and new construction in the state of California and Florida. We build houses. We help investors 1031 exchange, but hard money is at the core.
Where do you think hard money is right now in terms of just the overall view? Is it still super expensive? Is it getting cheaper? I mean, you're in this world every single day. As a new investor, what should I expect in working with a hard money lender?
It's really going to depend on what state you are in. Here in California, the rates are really compressed. Apparently, everybody wants to be in the hard money loan business. There's a lot of funny business that we're seeing. I have a mortgage broker that sends me rate sheets every once in a while. My favorite I saw was a minimum of a 350 credit score. I'm pretty sure that's whether you remember your name or not on the application. So as a hard money lender, one of the things we're best known for is market timing. It's funny, we were talking about this. I sent out an email to our network about a couple months ago of what to expect from us. You know, we are going to keep our rates competitive, but we've been around for 20 years. We've been through several cycles, and we want to be here for another 20. So we don't pool funds. So we're one of the few hard money lenders that does one-on-one investing, still whole note investing. And we're going to be very careful with the programs that we create. Wall Street's in the space. We've got Wall Street competitors that are bundling hard money loans and selling them on Wall Street for bond rated paper, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of competition, even coming from your community bank. They're getting into the game as well. So
that's right. So
Good for
back
real
that up
estate
for me.
investor. You have lots of competition.
So back that up for me. When you said bond rated paper, can you help some of the newer investors that are listening understand what that process is and what really goes into that?
Well, watch The Big Short, and you'll sort of learn how it works for what happened during the mortgage crisis. The general concept is the more paper you have put in one pool, the diversification is there to justify a better rating, because what are the chances they're all going to fail at the same time? So it's just interesting because hard money as a class has always been seen as very risky. A lot of the technology companies, we all have to keep in mind, have only been around since about 2014. So none of them are recession tested. However, there are other firms in the way, so the exit strategy could come in many forms. So you've got the Blackstones of the world that are still controlling these big rental REITs, to where if there was a downturn, these companies would have an exit strategy. They could sell it to one of these big Wall Street companies that plan to hold it. So it's just the entire industry has really changed. When I first started, our flip program was 12.5%, 3.5 points.
Yeah.
If you're charging over 2 points, nobody will even talk to you these days, really, unless you're doing something really creative or thirds, at 100% of fund value. It's interesting.
It's interesting to me, too, sometimes where you'll find these hard money lenders that will say, hey, let's do a 0% down, right? In my email, I think the other day, I got a program, the rate sheet, 0% down, 100% financing, 500 credit score, okay, no experience, okay. I'm like, how is this even possible? Like, who's writing these loans? Like, who's coming up with this stuff? Or maybe it's just a fee play, and they'll just say, hey, we'll just do, we're going to charge you a $795 underwriting fee or processing fee and deny you the loan, but you still paid us the $800. Is that what's going on, or are these programs real?
They are real. Okay. So
Okay.
you've got intermediaries right now to where, say I were to originate a loan with an interest rate of 10%. This intermediary is buying from local hard money lenders like me and several others at 8%, packaging those up and then selling them to other big retirement funds like CalPERS out here, I believe. So they're packaging those at bond rated paper. Everybody's really trying to get a decent rate of return. So if you have a savings account at your local bank, it's not happening there. So hard money is where assets that has got an asset that's backing it. It's just interesting because from what I understand, some of these intermediaries are heavily leveraged to the tune of 90%.
Yes.
So is it sustainable? I'm uncomfortable. I don't like where the industry is headed. We're just conservative by nature, but I also don't have my head in the sand. So we are doing our research, being careful, creating programs by market. So, for instance, we have a legit no bait and switch 6.9% rental program out here in California for 3 years, where that same program in Florida is 5 years, because it's a very different market.
Yes.
I really don't know how some of these Wall Street lenders are creating programs that are not tailored specifically to markets that they're operating in. It's just interesting to me. I think that would be really difficult to do.
So why only California and Florida? Maybe why not like Texas or Arizona, Nevada, for example, Michigan, Indianapolis, Ohio? They have some good opportunities. I mean, I'm an investor. I like my Alabama properties. I like Greenville, South Carolina. Maybe not so much Detroit, because even though I'm from Michigan, I haven't lived there in a while, and quite frankly, I just get a little creeped out by Coney Island. So why not? Why not a couple of these other states? And why are you only sticking to your guns on California and Florida?
Part of it's just feeling like you can be the best at what you do. We're best known here in California for real estate market timing. So my father wrote a report in '97 called The California Comeback, predicting a big run in price. In '06, we wrote The California Crash, telling investors to get out of the state of California. And then we just released a report this year called California Real Estate on Borrowed Time. So we think the state of California, we helped real estate investors. We created an 8-year program back in 2009. We helped real estate investors get into inventory far below replacement costs. And the conversation is now, hey, you own a 3.2 1970s in Bakersfield, California. During even a mild downturn, that's the kind of inventory that gets hardest first and comes back last. And it's quadrupled in price since you bought it. Has it done its job? So we can have that conversation because we really know the research. Same goes with Florida. My dad's been investing out there since Hurricane Andrew. He was investing in the Miami area, so we're familiar with the territory. We've flipped close to 100 houses out there, built a lot. We're building several hundred houses there over the next couple years. So we just know those markets really well, where if you're asking me about Detroit, I'm going to tell you, I heard you can buy a house for $500. Whether or not they're going to tear it down, I don't know.
Right. No, the same thing's happening in St. Louis. Very recently, there was an article that was I can't remember who released it or when it was. St. Louis government something. It's a program where you could buy homes for $1, and very similar to the city of Detroit, where you have a certain amount of time to bring it up to code, certain amount of time to renovate it, and if you don't do these things and meet these specific deadlines, you can't buy the property, you can't keep the property, the city will just take it back just like that. And I think that's, I don't know, I mean, St. Louis.
Yeah. Well, like right now, we're very part of the accessory dwelling unit conversation here in California. We're probably going to launch a second program because I have a lot of investors that have long-term financing that starts with a 3 or 4. Yep. They're not going to refi, even though I have like a legitimate 6.9% rate for 3 years, because they want to go really long. So we'll probably, we're going to launch probably in the next month a second program. But I'm also trying to get in the way of 3D printed homes because it's going to happen here first in California. It's happening this year. I'm already in conversation with at least one company who's doing it. I know how it's going to happen. So if I wasn't that tied to the market, it's just really hard to claim to be an expert in developing the right programs at the right time. So I think that's what's fun too. I just want to do a good job for our clients. I don't have a never-ending pool. People are looking to us to do our homework. So that's my job.
No, that's fair. I had a couple questions about iBuyer, but then you said 3D printed homes. And then I'm like, I don't know what's more intriguing, iBuyer or 3D printed homes. So Aaron, choose your own adventure, man. iBuyer or 3D printed homes? Where do you want to go?
The 3D printed homes, everyone's going under the radar right now, but you're going to see it this year.
Okay.
Specifically in California, follow the accessory dwelling unit conversation. It's in round 3 of in the state and assembly as far as regulation. It's being regulated, interestingly, at the state level. Many cities have not been meeting their affordable housing goals. So you've probably seen in the press that the state of California sued Huntington Beach, California, for not meeting those goals. So accessory dwelling unit is a way for them to meet those goals. And the state regulation basically says, by right, you as a property owner have the right to build an accessory dwelling unit in the back of the property. So we have, of course, our prices are nutty, but if you could build a 600 square foot home in the back of a primary residence, for example, and rent that out for a couple grand a year in LA, maybe that would, maybe the senior could move in the back and then rent out the front to a family. And that would allow that person to retire and not have to move to another state. Every city and municipality, unfortunately, is approaching this in a different way, and this is why the state is a little bit upset. They've been using it as a way to raise funds to plug their budget gaps. So, hey, you're going to, for that 600 square feet, you're going to need to put $20,000 into the school fund kind of thing is the nonsense that's been going on. So we're trying to feel our way out. The lending community hasn't quite figured it out as well. As a hard money lender, we've already been funding accessory dwelling units. And what's interesting is so far what I've seen, the appraisals have not been the issue. It's been the lenders. So
what do you mean by that?
It's just the accessory dwelling units, when it comes to the 3D printed homes, because we're talking about that size, that's roughly like Icon based out in Austin. They're printing us like, I think it's a 650 square foot unit. Their CEO I got to see at the builder show. I think they're trying to roll out this year. There's another builder in California that I don't want to say anything because they don't want to be out there yet, but they're going to be rolling out this year. Theirs is under 300 square foot for now, but then you've got Amazon that in my own backyard, they invested in a plant here. So they're getting into the prefab manufacturing space for homes. So I think ADUs are going to be huge, at least here in California, just because of where we are, the need for affordable housing. Supposedly, depending on who you talk to, we're 3 million units short. What a fast way to get us up to speed quickly, tying in infrastructure that already exists. You don't have to build roads and infrastructure. It's already there.
100% agreed. I mean, you take a look at some of these bigger cities as well. Cities that need the housing, this is a great solution. Atlanta partially solved it with the tiny homes, right? Like, you can build a tiny home in your backyard and charge rent for it. It's great. I'm excited to see New York follow suit. And generally whatever happens to the rest of the country happens to California first, right? So I love to see California kind of leading that as a leading indicator of this 3D printed kind of movement, which makes me want to like invest in a 3D printer. Like I feel like going to some of these like Icon and saying, hey guys, like can I just buy a printer for you? Like, so if I'm an investor, how do I take advantage of that outside of the obvious, which is I'm a homeowner in California, and I can have this accessory dwelling unit in my backyard that I can print or build myself. What can I do as an investor right now? What's the opportunity?
Assume you know nothing. You have to go to the local municipality, and the state of California had a list of all the cities that came up with ordinances around this, but understand we're in phase 3 of regulation and it's not through the pipeline yet. But the cities are continuing to write their own ordinances, and one of the things that are going to happen is that they're doing one thing, and I think it's going to lead to another. A lot of cities are mandating that at least one of the properties be owner occupied, which I think is a mistake. Like, why would you limit real estate investors who know what they're doing, who know how to get access to capital and actually construct? Why would you limit to what they can do when they could probably up the ante pretty quickly? So I'm a little disappointed. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
The thing that's
I don't know if I can get over that one.
I
think that would be an issue.
So you have to call the planning department and ask what their current ordinance is, and ask politically sort of where it's leaning. Do you have a city council that is pro, against? Is there anything in the pipeline that looking to adjust? Because it could mean a big deal. Right now in the state of California, if there's nothing in play, it defaults to the state regulation, and it is extremely generous, like up to 1,200 square feet that you could build.
Wow.
You could build 3 or 4 stories, I think. I mean, it's pretty funny. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a local city, which is interesting because there's a lot of historic homes in it, and they just didn't write anything. So I was talking to a general contractor that's building in the area, and the planners just roll their eyes, I guess, whenever he comes in, because they know the process, and there's nothing that they can do because they never wrote an ordinance around it. So it defaults to the state. So that's the one thing that you really have to be careful of if you're a short-term rental investor.
Yes.
Pay attention to that too, because along with them regulating the owner occupied, they're probably also going to regulate short-term rentals as well.
So I live in Atlanta, and a potential opportunity could be step 1, planning department. Step 2, which way are they leaning with the accessory dwelling unit? I'm reading my notes here. And then step 3 would be potentially to cut a deal with homeowners and say, listen, I'm willing to invest in your backyard quite literally, and maybe there's a way that you could JV with them. That would be really interesting, right? Because now you don't even have to own any land.
It's a brilliant idea. Yep, absolutely.
Right? I'm doing this now. Actually, you know what? We should stop. We should stop recording this. Cut this entire segment, and we'll just start over with Aaron Norris from the Norris Group talking about iBuyer. Like, I think that's a much better. No, but that's such a smart idea, right? Like, why wouldn't somebody do that right now? Because there's not a whole lot of regulation, depending on which state you're in, and once you find out, you'll be like your developer friend that just walks into the city planning unit, everybody rolls their eyes, and you know he's going to go build a 1,200 square foot, 3D printed home and rent out each unit for $1,000.
Yeah, and I think it's going to really depend on design too. I think if you're doing it right, I mean, a lot of our investors now have a really great eye towards design. So they're focusing on layout. Like if you're on a corner lot, for example, and you can build it to where the ADU has an exit on one street and where the primary has the other, it's just good design and feel to where it feels like it's meant to be instead of hodgepodge. Now, ready to get your mind blown?
Yes.
On top of 3D printed housing, manufactured housing counts just as well. And there are some cities about also looking at tiny homes. So in the state of California, there's Title 24, 25. Stick built under Title 24. Manufactured homes under Title 25. And then you've got the DMV who regulates things like RVs and technically, as of now, tiny homes. If it's on wheels, it's DMV regulated. What's cool about the tiny homes is you won't get taxed on it. It doesn't cause your taxes to be reassessed. However, from what I understand, and it's still sort of new, tiny homes have a terrible resale value. So you really have to do your homework of how long you're going to hold something,
Yes.
if your neighbors are going to complain, and politically, if you're going to have problems. I don't think a lot of people think about that.
Yeah.
You can end up with a lot of grief from neighbors and things. So you just have to make sure it's going to work on a bunch of different fronts.
It makes sense. I mean, if you're 3D printing a house, I mean, you might as well just go ahead and print wheels too while you're at it. I mean, you know,
so you can roll it away.
Just throw some axles on your house, and you're good to go. Aaron, thanks so much. Next time we have you on, we will actually talk about iBuyer. But I'm glad we had the 3D home printed conversation, the 3D printed home conversation, because that's an opportunity right now, right? If we focus on it, nobody's taking advantage of that. And just real quick, in 5 seconds, what's the cost that you've seen for, what'd you say, Icon's 650 square foot home?
Their goal is to get it down to $10,000. And I think that's just the structure. Obviously, I mean, with appliances, you can get over 10 grand if you're fancy. The other stuff that I'm seeing, it's over 60 grand. But again, you have to consider permits, land, and all of that. I think realistically, you're looking for about 100 or 150 grand for a 600 square foot property at this point for an ADU. So I don't think it works in every market. However, what's going to be exciting is if Amazon puts their toes in the ring and there's other places that they're making money, they could underwrite housing. They're like the new Sears of housing. They're just going to have a manual, just like pick what you want, and it's Alexa's in the wall. So there you go.
We are stepping into a brave new world, my friend. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Sorry, I always get super nerdy. I know we were supposed to talk about iBuyers next time.
iBuyers next time, Aaron. iBuyers next time. All right.
That's why I wore my glasses.
Hey, we're the two gentlemen that look the best wearing glasses, too. I mean, you're on panels all the time. And I'm like, all right, looking fly, bro. I like it. All right, well, cool. Aaron, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I'm going to have questions, and our viewers, our listeners will have questions as a result of listening to this. What's the best way they can reach you?
We're at thenorrisgroup.com. We have a radio show and podcast. We have a YouTube channel where every Friday I cover the video of the news of the week. So you can leave comments there, social media, or you could just check out thenorrisgroup.com. Call me. I actually answer the phone. It's weird.
Hey, look at that. You do, and I do my best to. So you're kicking my butt with that already. Well, I certainly appreciate the time. Thanks so much. And I'll quote out these 3D printed wheels for you, too, and I'll let you know how much they are.
I'm into it. All right.
All right. Thanks again, Aaron. All right. Think Realty Nation, you are going to be excited about these next two segments we have coming up. Get in touch. We'll be right back. This segment is brought to you by Norada Real Estate Investments, your premier source for cash flow investment properties. Visit www.turnkeyrealestateinvestments.com. All right, we're talking about the features that apartment renters want the most. And this may not surprise you. Okay, it didn't surprise me really, but here's what they are. Number one, providing services rather than spaces. So when I look at an apartment complex and the apartment complexes that we invest in, we do our best to really provide the services, but also include the spaces. And then, of course, that nice community feel, which is what you want. It's a community. But according to Tara Jeffcoat, Senior Research Analyst for Yardi Matrix, quote, it isn't enough just to have the fitness center, which I agree with, the clubhouse, which I agree with, the pool mix, which I agree with. She also says instead, provide these as services that busy millennials and active boomers want. So one of the things, pools. Another thing, pet-friendly features. So take a look at that. I mean, I'm thinking about getting a dog. My wife and I are thinking about getting a small little dog, but I want a big one. And she's like, well, I don't really know what we would do this if we were, say, living in an apartment complex. So think about that and think about the swimming pool idea. We also have started now to implement your concierge trash services. So that's another really good one. So services, also the U2 laundry service. I think that's a pretty interesting one to take a look at as well. Not a lot of millennials want to do their own laundry. I mean, I don't want to do my own laundry. And sometimes U2, not a bad idea. All right. The number one, the other one is inside the apartments, renters want quiet. If you can soundproof the walls during construction, do it. It is super, super important that you take a look at this feature. Also, an eating area and breakfast bar, they go a really, really long way with renters. Make them feel like it's their home. not just an apartment complex. Next up, big cities lacking family apartments. And are adult dorms the answer? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It kind of seems a little weird to me, but then again, I don't really live in a big city and I also don't have a need for an adult dorm. But here we go. According to Rob Speyer, who's the president and chief executive at Tishman Speyer, quote, people are choosing to raise families in big cities more than ever. And, quote, it's very difficult to find housing that's tailored to that, being a family environment. So there's a company by the name of Common. It was founded roughly a couple years ago, about 4 years ago, and it offers apartments that have tiny bedrooms and also shared kitchens, shared bathrooms. So it's kind of like a co-living space area-ish. There are perks, though. You've got regular housekeeping services, which is kind of cool. Community services as well, like game nights, organized outings to comedy shows, museums, etc. So I think that concept, if you're living in a really big city like New York City, for example, makes a whole lot of sense. Or maybe some city that's really expensive, like San Francisco, Sacramento, Los Angeles, where there's not enough space, but you want to raise a family in this big city, maybe consider an adult dorm. This same company, Common, which rents out furnished rooms and shared service apartments, is teaming up with New York real estate developer Tishman Speyer to launch this product in the next week or so. And under this new brand called Kin, buildings will feature playrooms, family-size units, and on-demand childcare through an internal mobile app. I think that's the coolest. And whenever we purchase an apartment complex, we generally use a mobile app where tenants can pay rent, etc., and have maintenance requests. I think this is really neat. Yeah, on-demand childcare. This is incredible, and it also helps connect families looking to share nannies and babysitters. I think it's a great idea. All right, Think Realty Nation, that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the show today. My good friend Aaron Norris from the Norris Group, we talked a lot about 3D printed homes, which I didn't really think there was an opportunity there, but I'll keep you posted as I go down this path. That was a really fun conversation, so if you want to reach out to him again, check him out, www.thenorrisgroup.com. Have any questions for us here at Think Realty? Super easy to get in touch. Go to thinkrealty.com. You can find me anywhere online at Abhi Golhar. I'm a huge believer right now in LinkedIn and Instagram, so I'm doubling down on those two platforms. So feel free to reach out. We can have a one-on-one discussion right there, and then I'll feature your question in that discussion right here on the Think Realty podcast very, very soon thereafter. Just note that the sponsor for today's show is Renters Warehouse, and that's an awesome team. You got to check them out. My good friends Kevin Ortner, Greg Gran, and Noel Christopher over there. So this podcast is brought to you by Renters Warehouse, one of the largest, fastest growing, and highest reviewed property management companies in America. RentersWarehouse.com. Until next time, Think Realty Nation, happy investing.